So we're calling this a pre-construction meeting. Construction won't happen for another month or so, but we wanted to give the businesses and the interested people out there enough heads up of kind of what's planned for Curry Street. Not just what are the improvements, but also on the construction side, schedule and all that, and give you guys an opportunity to answer some questions. I'm Dan Stuckey, the city engineer. I've got Rick Cooley in the back. He's a construction manager for the city. Q&D is the contractor for this project. They also did downtown Carson Street, so probably a lot of you might already be familiar with them, but we've got Jeff Bean, the vice president of Q&D. Rob, what's your last name, Rob? Bagley with Q&D, and then Brett Amesbury, he'll be the project manager from Q&D on this project. And then the lead design engineers, Lewis & Associates, and Mike Bennett is here with Fred Lewis, is the director of engineering over there. So we'll go ahead and get started. The purpose of this meeting, can everybody can hear me fine, right? I don't need to speak, okay. Just wanted to give a little brief history of kind of the project, an overview of some of the improvements that we have planned. And then obviously Q&D here will kind of go through the schedule and the construction process with you. And then also at the end, we'll talk about how you can stay connected throughout construction. We've got some things set up to be able to get information out to the businesses and residents, and also the visitors that are coming to downtown Carson City, and how they can kind of plan around the construction. And then we'll open it up for questions. If you have questions that come up during the presentation is going to be short, but if you have questions that come up, please feel free to ask. So just a little project overview. The improvements along Curry Street are from Musser Street to the south to Robinson Street to the north. And essentially they're going to be very similar improvements to what was on Carson Street, kind of to create that unified downtown. Kind of just a couple of the features. I've got pictures of Carson Street, which you guys all know what happened down there, but a lot of the landscaping features, the pavers, the new sidewalks, some street lights, and also with this project that doesn't get talked about a lot is that about a third of the cost is going to be in utility improvements, some water, stormwater, sewer upgrades down there. It's some of the oldest infrastructure that we have in the city. So with that, that's a big component of this project. Paver sidewalk or crosswalks there we have. And then on the north side, you can see here it stretches, like I said, to Robinson Street. Telegraph Square, there's going to be some improvements there, some pavers throughout there. We're also updating the facade, those planter areas, those 4 planter areas. Again, lots of landscaping throughout the project, which you can see there. A little history, so Curry Street design actually got started back in 2014 along with the Carson Street design, and the plan all along was to take both of those designs to 60% and then branch, basically advance Carson to final design and construction in 2016, and then at a later date finalize the Curry design and construct in 2018. So that's where we are today. What happened fairly recently around October, November, the redevelopment agency approved some funds to address the cross streets. So you can see Robinson, Spear, Telegraph, Proctor, and Musser are all going to get beautification improvements along with this project. So the project somewhat expanded in scope with the new funding. Also on those cross streets, there'll be some pavement reconstruction associated with that. And then also a lot of the utilities run east-west on those cross streets. So with those cross street improvements, we'll be doing those utility upgrades in that area. Also, I didn't mention the Telegraph Spear Alley is going to be getting some improvements there. A lot of that, the stamped concrete that's there now is pretty badly deteriorated, so it's going to be updated with new pavers. Also, the archway is going to be updated in that alleyway. And then just some interesting things, the street lights along the Curry corridor are all gas street lights. They're hard for maintenance purposes, but also they don't produce much light. So that's another big component of this project. They'll all be upgraded to LED street lights, similar to what was done on Carson Street. And really that's it. I addressed that, again, it is a big utility project as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Q&D to talk about the construction schedule.
Thank you, Dan. Again, my name is Fred Amesbury. I'm with Q&D. and just here to talk to you about the schedule. Our proposed schedule is actually looking at starting somewhere in the middle of April with the mobilization, construction startup. We'll go out, pothole utilities, verify stuff. We'll start setting up signs and cones. Probably also a few no park signs, but we'll start with the water line construction. And the water line mainly runs north and south on Curry Street. And there we'll replace the main, do other services, so we'll have to coordinate some of the shutdown periods with the businesses as we work through the corridor. The next thing we'll do is the sewer improvements, and most of those run on the side streets. Those run east and west, and we'll just have to start coordinating with that as we get closer to the construction and each tie into the services. After that, we're going to move into the sidewalk and curb and gutter replacements. There we'll just start moving from block to block to block and tearing out all this, the curb and gutter and some of the sidewalk, and start improving that with new curb and gutter, new sidewalk, new pavers, new ADA ramps. And through that process, we'll go into the landscaping portion. We've got to get a new irrigation main in and all these services for the plants and the planter areas. Also through that time, we'll be doing that's this section just right here. It's also electrical improvements, and the electrical improvements will include all the light improvements, and then we're also removing the big overhead power transformers and power poles in the corridor there as well. And then towards the end, around September time, we're going to be looking at reconstructing the road. It'll be a similar process to what was on Carson Street. We'll pulverize, cut the grade out, and then get it ready to pave. It'll probably be a couple-day process for paving, so there's a little bit of impact there. And then we also have the telegraph improvements after we pave. It's a new paver crosswalks with like a raised concrete pad. And then after that, we'll get it striped and finished out and have it pretty well completed for Nevada Day. There might be some little stuff after the fact, like tree planting and landscaping improvements that may be going on as well. So you can kind of see these are the impacted areas. This is Curry Street, Carson Street, Mustard right here. So we're going to basically, the water main will go first, and it goes from the south to the north. And it'll go block by block by block. And then we'll come back and do the sewer up Mustard, up Proctor, up Telegraph, and up Spear, and then up Robinson. I'll give you a visual there. And then the curb and gutter removal and the sidewalk improvements will just probably chase that as well.
So Brad, are you keeping the four corners on Telegraph Square? The buckouts there with the trees and the...
Those planters actually get removed in this project, and we are going to be
We're
building
replacing
new ones.
We're replacing them with existing ones. We're getting rid of them.
Oh, okay.
This will be like the seat walls that are downtown right now. That's going to be
The street signs that are inset in there now, we're gonna reuse those. We're gonna put lighting in the walls to improve the lighting in the area. Just make it more nice for now.
And one thing with this project too is most of the trees that were healthy and thriving, they will be kept with this project. I think the telegraph trees where we had an arborist look at them, they're just not doing that great. So with that, with the planter replacement, there'll be new trees in there that are better urban trees, I guess.
There's only 3 trees, I believe, that are coming.
Yeah, it's very minimal, and obviously the entire project's going to add a lot more trees back. But yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 trees that might be coming out with that.
And how many new ones? 30-something new ones?
Yeah, at least about
How about on 4th Street? Is there anything going on 4th down where Common Coffee is? on that corner?
Yeah, so, there will be, there's kind of some square paver pads right now, those will be removed and a new tree will go in.
So they'll get trees?
Yeah,
Okay.
there'll be 2 trees there and I believe 2 streetlights as well will be going down there. So that's the only improvements that you don't see on this screenshot here of the project limits.
The last time I heard a presentation was at the DBA meeting, and I was under the impression that construction was gonna be pretty much over by July. And the timeline that we just saw goes all the way to Nevada Day. It poses a tremendous concern for businesses that front on Curry Street that are dependent on traffic.
Yeah.
What happened?
No, I
Per
believe,
evening, but all the businesses in there, because that's the
Yeah.
access to the parking for all of them, from
Yeah.
Main to Curry, and even across the street, and, it's a long season.
yeah, no, I understand the concerns. I believe back in the DBA meeting, we were thinking August at that point. And as I said, the scope has kind of changed in the sense that we had some these streets are in pretty bad shape, so we had some funding opportunities to improve those streets. And with those streets, we wanted to do the utility improvements as well. So the scope changed a little bit at that point, and that expanded the schedule somewhat as well.
And Carson Street was bad enough in terms of the impact on businesses that are in Curry. If Curry shut down, I mean, when Carson Street was shut down, there was traffic on Curry, so stores got foot traffic, got vehicular traffic. It's gonna be really difficult.
Yeah, there's some challenges. I mean, it is a smaller footprint, Curry. I mean, as far as, Carson is obviously a wider street with both lanes, traffic in both directions. I mean, I think Q&D has some plans as far as how they'll shut down kind of on a block by block and leave some of the cross streets open to allow access to those businesses.
So like an example would be if we're working right here on Curry Street, we just can't work safely with people getting by us. So we will most likely have to close this road, but we won't close this one, or this one, or this one, so.
We change the direction of traffic while you're doing construction, because a number of those are, I think, one way. So the traffic flow can
These
get,
three are one way.
and Curry Street is one way going north at that point.
The difficulty if we start switching traffic is then you start losing parking, because you can't get, we looked at doing that on Carson, when we did the Carson Street reconstruction, and the opinion of the team at that point was that the 10 or 15 spaces you were gonna lose, because you wouldn't be able to, if it's an eastbound street and you start traveling westbound, you can't turn and do a U-turn within the limits of the street. So already having difficulty with parking on Curry, then we're taking spaces where we're working, and then now you're losing spaces on streets that traffic is running on, so.
And there are also events planned. They're scheduled for now, looks like in the middle of construction.
Yeah, and we've been coordinating with the various events, so, I mean, the big ones are Epic Rides, which the route comes down to Buster Street, so Q&D is aware of that, and they'll accommodate that event. And then the other big one is Taste of Downtown. We've been in coordination with them as well.
And we have, Two Sisters has an event scheduled for actually the first weekend in June.
Okay,
And
they may have,
the first Saturday in October.
yeah, and I know the planning department has been sending out letters to all the events. I will check on that one. They may have received something, but if not, I'll make sure that they do.
They haven't in the past received notices.
Okay.
Excuse me, how long have those utilities been on Curry Street that you guys are gonna be changing them?
Some of them are about 70 years old.
Time changes.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Some of the water lines that they, on the Carson project were in you know, pretty old. So it's a good, I mean, again, the utility component of this project is really important to address. We need to do it.
Mark Schmidt, Carson Jewelry and Loan. First of all, just thank you, Q&D, for the Carson Street project and working hand in hand with me on a daily basis in regards to what we can accomplish in the amount of time that we did. And thank you to the city staff. You guys worked really closely with me. I had a couple of issues and you jumped on it really quickly. So thank you for that. And then you commented the fact that you were only closing one block of Curry Street at any one given time. Is that what I heard?
Most likely, when we get to the intersections, it'll be a little more difficult to handle. But
And then as far as street signage, you'll basically just push people around to the backside and with signage and stuff like that? So in regards to what businesses might be in that area, they can find easier access to?
yes, we're definitely willing to get the business signs up and get some arrows to your businesses.
Right, but the sticky part's gonna be when we do those side streets on the corners, because that seems like those gonna be the biggest cluster is when you guys are trying to do those side streets in addition to that corner right there. That's gonna be the largest blockage, I would assume.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's where the difficulty is gonna become, because it's already essentially one lane with, especially at the intersections, you don't have much more than the one lane. And then when we start getting an equipment in there, it gets really tight.
Right, yeah, because those side streets will, as Steve mentioned, will obviously affect the main street businesses also. So yeah, that's gonna be the tough deal right there.
And the detour direction is gonna be mostly determined by the one-way streets.
Right, and then pedestrian traffic, making sure that the businesses have pedestrian access, that's obviously a priority.
Yep, we'll do like we did on Carson Street with, you know, where a lot of times we saw cut part of the sidewalk out, removed that part, replaced part, flipped over, did the other half, used plywood ramps.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be a case-by-case basis, just depending on where the doors are and how everything phases out.
Right, and then currently John Platt will be the go-to person as far as city is concerned? Okay.
So during President of Downtown 2020, so Jeff, is there going to be anybody doing night shifts so you can clear up some of that traffic during the daytime?
There will be some night work, mostly for utility connections. And that'll be, again, a case-by-case basis, similar to what we did on downtown Carson, or on Carson Street. We kind of work with each business and find where their impact is least, and then plan the utility cutovers and tieovers at that point. As far as work on Curry Street, the only thing I would anticipate at this time is possibly the paving operation, kind of the reconstruction of the road, the last 1 week push. Just because that operation goes so fast, we won't be able to limit the closure area. But we would be able to open it up in off-hour times. So we'll kind of get a feel for how the project's going, and if it makes sense to go nights for that reconstruction, then we will.
Not in this particular block, but you mentioned being further south on Curry down near McFadden. Jazz and Beyond is scheduled from the 4th of August through the 20th. There are a number of events that are scheduled for McFadden. And then in addition, you've got Levitt and so on. So that, one, I don't think you want to be doing construction while there's musicians trying to perform. And I don't know what kind of impact otherwise you're going to have, but that certainly is going to should add to the concern. And farmers market as well that's down there.
Yeah, so really the only improvements that are gonna be happening south of this point are putting in like it's really minimal, like two trees and a couple lights. So really the impact from that would be very, very, very minimal. So, and really we won't even really be around the plaza area. So.
All right, well, a statement and then a couple of questions. The statement, I'm Steve Brown, Carson Cigar Company. We were down somewhere around 15% during Main Street construction. Before y'all think I'm bitching, I was a proponent of what you did there. How long ago?
2 years.
Shit.
Year and a half.
1987.
3 years ago.
I helped found downtown Main Street
Yeah.
with Doreen, I was the president of it, I was on redevelopment for years. So I'm not, well, I am bitching, but I'm not complaining, I just want y'all to understand something, okay? As you're gonna be the ones building this, I just want you to understand something. It doesn't matter what you do, okay? People see that construction is going on and the word goes out, just stay away, don't mess with it, and they don't come. I thought the Main Street project was handled very well, and still my business was down 15% or more during that year because of the construction. They just stayed away. I'm anticipating double this on this. So I don't think there's a damn thing anybody can do about it. You gotta make the improvements, so we're just gonna have to suck it up and find a way to survive. I just want y'all to be aware of that. If that in any way changes your thinking about how to speed it up or work a little more at night, or as he says, Mark said, respond a little quicker to us when we call you with a problem, because I know the city's not gonna step up and try to give us any assistance to make up for that lost business. God forbid fees, taxes, no, that's not gonna happen. I'm not even gonna bother with that.
Another thing.
So I
that-
just want y'all to be aware of that this is what's gonna happen to us while you're doing this. I'm anticipating 25 to 30% down, possibly through that time. That's my comment. 2 questions. Number 1, has anybody talked with Tom about opening up the row of parking that he's basically made useless during the construction? He's got that whole row knocked off, and he should be getting to the point now where he can reopen up that row of parking, which will help the businesses with this, because that's a whole thing that's not being used. You know, Tom Metcalf, I'm talking about
So you're talking about,
the old bank building, whatever the hell it's called.
No, it's
That parking
it's the
space
row.
right there. That
Yeah.
whole row of parking that went up by the side of it has been blocked off since they started construction. And has anybody talked to him about, hey, Tom, it's time to free that up, you guys are pretty close to finishing up?
The discussion was had months ago with him, and there was an email that was written, and he had a plan set that was supposed to happen, was never followed through on.
Well, maybe
which
y'all
included
could pressure
opening
him
most of
to do that. That would take some relief off. Second thing, my second question is Curry from Telegraph to Proctor. Now, when I was on redevelopment committee, and we did the Telegraph Square, we did the original.
We did,
Telegraph
you guys
Square.
are taking away our design.
And that's all right, it sounds like their new design will be nice, but the
Okay.
point is, I was one of the instrumental ones, because we did this over when I owned Cactus Jack's. We increased parking over there by 40-some% just by going to diagonal and redoing the curbing out there, that whole thing was ours. So when we put in Telegraph Square, we did diagonal parking on both sides of Curve Street. A couple of years ago, without warning and no notice, and I don't know why, y'all took away, I'm talking to the city now, not Q&D or this thing. Y'all took away diagonal on the far side, and I don't know why. And we lost 2 for 1 on our parking places. One day I came in and it was just restriped parallel parking over there. Can that be put back to diagonal again? Because that will increase parking as well.
I don't believe it would work with the new design, there's just not
No,
enough room.
we've taken the new parallel on the west side, and we've made the sidewalks wider, so there's just not enough room to do that.
Okay. But you're not taking away any of the parking that's existing now. Everywhere it's diagonal right now, it's gonna remain diagonal, is that correct?
Right. Yeah, through some reconfigurations.
Because we don't care about sidewalks over there, we care about sidewalks on Main Street. Curry is for access. Main Street's the draw, Curry's the access, that means parking, not walking, parking. Well, you need some walking, but we got walking on Main Street, we got plenty.
But there's some
Those are
main,
my questions and comments.
I did want to talk, on your first question about parking, we are in talks right now with the Adams Foundation about as far as opening up some of this parking here and as well as this area to accommodate during construction, so we have initiated that conversation.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
that's okay. Does it all have to be done at one time? Because there's just some main intersections there, over at the McFadden Square is one, Telegraph Square is another. If you did them all left Telegraph Square and did it again like in
We're
the
not,
fall?
we're not doing any work with that.
You aren't, I'm just talking about the intersections, just on Curry Street.
Yeah, we're not doing any work down by.
None down there?
This is these
It doesn't go south of
4
this,
blocks.
except,
It stops right there.
So as far as Telegraph Square goes, is that one that could be done separately, like in the fall or next summer, or next
Well, I mean,
spring?
the answer to that is yes, but all you're doing is just delaying construction out years now. I mean, the goal is for Q&D to get in and get out as quickly
Yeah,
as they can.
okay.
So, short answer is, we've only looked at one project that we can get in and move as quickly and efficiently through that as we can.
And that was the biggest thing with Carson Street too. Get in, get out, get as much damage as you can, and get out with doing as little damage.
We did, we did,
Yeah, we didn't
walked around
speed it
first.
up, not slow it down.
Correct.
What's the plan with, sorry, David Stern from Battleborn Social. What's the plan with letting the community and everybody know what the plan is, say just for that day, where the construction's gonna be that day, where's the detour is gonna be, where's their route, where should their route be, at least for that day or for the upcoming week? How would you planning on letting
so
everybody
that's the
know?
last part of this presentation, I'll get to it, but we do have, it's basically through the Carson Proud website, which we'll talk about, but there's a construction zone map that basically will have all that information, as well as weekly videos and weekly email blasts that you guys will get with a bunch of information on construction, which I'll get to in more detail.
When we, two things, one, even more than Carson Street, I think you've got to knock yourselves out for signage. A good deal of the traffic we get are people from out of town, and if they come up and it's torn up, they're gone. We've lost them as customers. A business that depends on locals may, and I'm not sure that it's true, but may feel less impact because locals are here, they know what's going on. But for people that are traveling up 395 or 580, when you come into town, the signage, you've got to make directions clear, and yes, these things are open. Not wait till you're down by in front of the Capitol, because by that time, you may have lost them in terms of customer traffic. The other thing is, and you may have responded to it in the Carson Proud, but when will business owners or businesses on Curry Street actually have, you've got a rough timeline, and when will we know dates, actual dates, so that we can plan things around it? The only thing, Epic Rise isn't the only thing that's going on in town that is dependent on scheduling. So when will that information, more detailed or granular information, be available to businesses?
Yeah, and you hit on it with the Carson Proud, we're gonna be pushing out a lot of that information as far as
But
pretty specific.
how far in advance? If you tell us this week or this weekend that something's going to happen next Saturday, you've blown it. It's not of that much use to us. If you're planning stuff, we need to know at least a couple of weeks, if not a month out, specifics.
The difficult part with that is there's too many, it's not building widgets. Every day is we come into situations we didn't anticipate and didn't expect. And so if we said on June 21st, we're going to be in front of this business doing this operation, and we said that 3 to 4 weeks in advance, we'd be lying to you. And I'd love to be able to give you that level of detail, but it would just straight up be a lie. One thing Q&D will do is commit to an end date, and we will commit to communicating with Carson and working to get that information out with the best information we have, but to go to the detail of this panel of sidewalk or this door is going to be impacted 4 weeks from now on this date.
I mean,
And if there's anybody-
project blocks and say, okay, between Musser and Proctor's the next one, not Proctor. This is when it's
Honestly,
gonna-
we could do that, but then what happens when we're wrong? Now you've got now you have a big event planned around it, and
So
the wrong is going to be 2 days out.
But the alternative, when you said big event, is not to plan something and then lose even more business.
So most of our work is happening during the week, and you're talking about Saturdays. I don't see a lot of Saturday schedules. When Q&D buttons up for the week, they,
The street
streets are
will be
gonna
open.
Drivable, the sidewalks are gonna be passable, but it's going to be a construction zone. There's gonna be fencing, there's gonna be cones, there's, you name it, right? But it's going to be open, so to speak.
And if you have an event that you want to start it setting up for at 3 o'clock on a Friday, noon on a Friday, a Thursday, if you communicate that information to us, and with the understanding that it's going to be a passable construction zone, we'll work around that information. I mean, that, we can, if you came to us and said, hey, Friday, June, the second Friday in June, this is what I want to do, and this is what's going on, I think that's a lot easier for us to plan around than to be able to come to you and say, this is going to be 100% complete, no impact on this date. Or 100% we haven't touched it. Because there's the flip side, right? If we commit to you that on this date, this is how this is going to look, and we start gaining schedule, now we have to stop and slow down. And that's not advantageous to anybody. So the better thing would be for you to communicate what events you want and how you want them to look, and we'll do what we can to accommodate that and make a commitment to you on that, in that kind of reverse fashion.
Generally speaking, are you moving south to north?
Yes.
Yes.
And you can generally see, and we can generally see you guys coming, right? You'll be 2 blocks down, then you'll be a block down, then you'll be a half a block down. So you can get an idea when you guys are gonna be sort of in the area of that particular business. And I think Mike's comment in regards to the fact that the street, that commitment to the fact that the street's gonna be literally open from Friday afternoon till Monday morning. The entire Curry Street will be open and there'll be no blockage for traffic for those 2.5 days of the week, correct?
Right.
Okay, any sort of a commitment as to what you might be able to say, once you close a block down, how much time will be spent in that block? Would it be a Monday through Friday thing? Would it be 2 Monday through Friday things? And I realize that there's stuff that comes up involved once you guys get digging, so.
Well, the work is sequential, so there'll be a sequence of work block to block, right? The water line, and we follow through with, we've got to go up the other side streets with the sewer, so it's gonna be, the block to block will be at different times, and we will do our best to inform you of what those times are. But like Jeff said, we don't want to lie to you either, so it's going to be a little bit of a fluid situation.
Right, yeah, is there an estimate as to how long it might take to do a block though? That's what, would it be like a 5-day commitment, a 10-day commitment, a
It's
15-day
3 to
commitment, or we really don't know at this time?
East and west side combined is 3 to 4 weeks.
3 to 5
From the-
days per each.
On each block?
roughly. 3 to 5 days for each block. So then it's like a 5 weeks thing, almost. Could be as short as 3 weeks and as long as 5 weeks
Per block.
per block.
And then the last week to 7 working days is reconstructing the road from one end to the other.
Gotcha.
The big unknown for us that could really hang us up is the underground utilities.
Absolutely.
Once we get through the underground, if there's a hang up, we work around it. If it's a 15 by a 10-foot area, and if we're waiting on Mike to kind of iron out whatever we came across that we didn't expect, we jump ahead and keep going and figure out a way to tie that in temporarily as far as sidewalks and curb and gutter stuff.
But
I think what will really help is if you're gonna close a block or close an area, and it's gotta stay closed until you're done, fine, work around the clock, or as much as you can. However, if you're gonna be working on an area and shutting down in the evening, many of our businesses are swing shift businesses. That's where we do most of our business. So at those times, the earlier you could start and the earlier you could shut down and get a full day's worth of work in and kind of clean up and leave the parking and access for swing shift, that would help us, okay? Running real early day shifts when you're gonna open it back up, and when it's closed 24 hours, throw as much work as fast into it as you can. That will help us a lot more than anything else.
And let the public know that the street will virtually be open in the evening time, right? Because you guys shut down at 3, 4 o'clock?
That's what we were just thinking, if we go 6 to 3:30,
Right, the dinner
And you
shift
don't
will still
leave
be available.
equipment, you don't leave equipment in parking spaces, which
the,
y'all didn't do in the other, but some private contractors down there have left. I've come seen equipment taking up 5 parking spaces, and I called them up, how long is it gonna be there? Well, till next Monday, and it was Friday. I said, I don't think so.
If our
But I
guys
don't
say
know.
that, you can call me. I'll come down.
Well,
and
that
look
was
at
the
my
other
site.
question I was gonna ask, is if y'all would consider a hotline that is not open to the public, that is very guarded, because you've got more things to do than take prank calls from everybody who's pissed off. But if those of us who own a business could have a hotline,
so,
that if we do have an issue, we can call, we know a number to call, and we don't get a, huh? They're not in, can I take a message?
the best
Whether it's
hot,
his cell phone or his
That's-
cell phone.
the best hotline is our site superintendent that's on site, because he knows
What's his number?
he
What's his
will,
number?
he will be out there on the street handing out business cards when he gets on the
Okay.
ground in that 10 days ahead of
You don't have
time.
to hand them to everybody, but if we don't have to mess around, if we can
'Cause
make one call.
That's, the hard part about like an official hotline is, it goes to maybe a voicemail, maybe a person, then it goes
Yeah,
to
I'm not talking an
Dan,
official.
then it goes to
I'm talking
Rick, then it,
Super
yes.
secret double probation.
No, yeah.
We got,
Okay.
our
That's what
form,
I'm talking
our
about.
site guy will be available to you, and, if, we will not blow you off. If you guys, if we get, we get a phone call, we got several, we got phone calls all down Carson Street, I was there, and, the guy would drive up from Reno if something was awry, there was a machine parked in the way, or there was a pallet of
Pallet of pavers.
Pavers, he'd get out of his jammies and come down and move it, so.
Yep.
We'll,
Well, I can
we'll,
comment.
we'll try not to do that, but,
Efficiency.
you guys will have access to our people.
And then he's got a list of people who live in Carson. Maybe they aren't part of the project specifically, but they live in Carson, so that when something like that does come up, he's
Yeah.
not dispatching somebody from Spanish Springs and it's an extra hour. He's coming from a couple blocks away and taking a 10-minute, because usually that's what it is, right? It's usually something that, with a piece of equipment and some knowledge, 10 minutes fixes 80% of the problem.
Right.
And so rather than 3 hours of travel time, we find somebody local.
I have a question, I know when you did Carson Street, and there's no way of predicting until you are in the ground, but there were some interesting issues about water lines and so on. If you're moving along, Kurt, how long would do you anticipate, and I understand you never know until you're in the ground, but there's a medical office next to us. They depend on water. I don't know if any of the businesses that go through to Carson Street get their water feed from the north or their sewage, but how long could a business reasonably expect to be without either water or sewage
So
when you're working in their block?
typical water tie over is an hour to an hour and a half. One that goes awry is 4 hours. But we plan those, if it's not a 24-hour business, then we plan those for off hours. And if that means we have to come in at 1 a.m. after the bar's last call, or 2 a.m., or then we come in at 2 a.m. and do the water tie over. Or if
Yeah,
it's,
that's what y'all did.
Or at
if they're
night.
not open until 10, then we'll do 5 in the morning. So the water tie overs and the sewer tie overs take a lot of coordination and effort to plan, but the actual process of doing that is pretty simple.
Yeah, and we'll prepare, we'll get those, we don't just come in and go, well, let's see here. We'll get it all ready, and then we'll work closely with the business owner. Guy says, okay, water's off, boom, and it'll be quick, as quick as we can.
It's barely any different than working on your sprinkler system.
May sound like a petty question, but where are your guys gonna be parking their vehicles?
That's a challenge.
Because right now, there's contractors taking up more than half of our parking for that area
So
in that lot.
contractor, our guys' personal vehicles, we'll park them away and shuttle in. So we'll go take somebody else's parking spaces for you. But there, I mean, you know, a pipe crew's got 2 pickups, the foreman's got his pickup, the landscaper's got 2 pickups, so I mean, there's gonna be a lot of labeled vehicles still in the area impacting. And then the logical thing would be, hey, well, put them in the closure. Well, the whole idea of the closure is trying to get room to work, so then we're gonna have to work together, and if, that's a use of the cell phone number. Call the foreman and say, hey, man, for 5 straight days, you've been taking the #1 spot in front of my shop. Can you go take a turn with somebody else? And,
And don't let it go 5 days though.
yeah.
Call us. We'll be sensitive to you.
15 minutes.
We'll be sensitive to you. We'll keep the personal vehicles off-site.
And cleanup.
I'm
Right now
sorry?
we're having- And cleanup, right now we're having major issues in that area with lots of debris, i.e. Screws, nails, roofing nails.
Yeah, we don't-
equipment all
We'll
over
have
the
a-
floor. I
there will
had
be
an
a-
employee that had to replace
Yeah,
4
Mr.
tires on
Metcalf
his
is
car.
paying a lot of flat tire
A
bills.
lot of
right
flat
now.
tire bills.
Yeah.
There will be a sweep,
Okay.
2 or 3 times a week we'll come through and sweep. Because we have our big issue isn't nails and that kind of debris, our big issue is dirt and soil, and so then we've got environmental swippy issues and
Asphalt chunks.
asphalt chunks, and so there will be a loader, probably every day the loader will go through and try to clean the road off, but it'll just get kind of the majority of it, but not the last 10%. And then a couple times a week, the sweeper will come through and sweep the surrounding area.
Nick Fontanez, Cipriani's downtown. My only question is, will the parking lot go down at all? Will there be access to that little parking lot in front of
The Adams Hub.
is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Adams Hub area where they're building that construction.
Yeah, right there. Will
Yes.
that go down at all? Or will that always be available to us? Because that's the only place I can park for work without getting a ticket.
I believe that will be available, correct? I think 18 parking spots will be available for the,
Now, the problem with that lot, and it's fine because it gives us more parking spaces, you can't come in from Nevada Street and move around the lot. You have to, if you come in on Nevada Street, you have to exit on Curry Street. So that's another thing for y'all to keep in mind. When that block is closed for work on Curry, you're thinking, oh, people can access that parking lot from Nevada, and they can, but they can't drive around in it. So if it's at all possible for them to do a UE, they gotta come out into the street to go to the other, you understand what
So
I'm
in
saying?
order for that parking lot to work, Curry needs to have access out of it.
If at all
Least the lane.
possible, even if it's just a round.
you're saying they can't
the-
turn around in here?
No,
right?
so there's no loop until you get out into the road.
Yeah, you've got to go all the way to.
Now, they could have put one in, but it would have taken up parking spaces, so I'm glad they didn't. But now it's causing a problem with this, so if you can just be aware of that.
We'll be cognizant of it. We can't necessarily guarantee 100% of the
No,
time,
But as long as you're cognizant of it.
but we can, if we can work with making sure that there's something there, even if we bring them out into the intersection so they can flip around or something. We'll figure out something there.
And Dan, what you're hearing is that we've been under construction on that
Yeah.
area for 2 years now virtually.
Between
And-
Main Street and that
Right.
new building going
Right,
in.
so the
we've been under
frustration
construction
was
for
already at
3
that peak point, you know what I mean? And so it's been a city parking lot for staff and employees for a long period of time. And of course, we'd like to see it continue to be that way, not only throughout this process, but also into the future. So at no point it becomes a permit park area, that kind of thing. So, a lot of clients use that parking space on a daily basis.
And you've got the Secretary of State's office that spills over there, and the lot at the corner of Nevada and Musser. In fact, that's usually filled by employees from the Secretary of State's office. Yeah. See, no, you know what I'm talking about. It belongs to the church, Presbyterian Church.
Maybe some of those spots are there.
Is this a good time to bring up where will the Tesla charging stations be? And as much as people laugh about that, I've heard it over and over and
I
over.
will kill you.
So, not in that lot, but I've heard customers comment as far as where in Carson City can I charge my car, so.
It's, by Save Mart, north end of town. There's a
Right.
chart I just happened to see the other day.
Yeah, and I did come up with one of the DBA meetings too. Somebody asked if you guys had any intention of putting any charging stations anywhere in this particular project.
Not with this project, and I don't know,
I'm game. So as of now,
not with this project, and I'm not sure about future plans for charging stations, nothing that I'm aware of, yeah.
Are there any plans in this for, large format, trash units?
No, we looked into that, and they're just, it's not included with this project, it just wasn't, we
We-
couldn't make it work.
We actually did spend some time looking at that, and the only solution was to take parking spaces,
Parking.
and if that was,
Parking was more important.
yeah.
We want to continue along, and then you guys will have more opportunity for. So I think probably, hopefully most of you guys are familiar with the Carson Proud website. It's a good resource for the major projects in Carson City to get information.
Will it be more up to date than it's been?
Yeah, once construction happens, there'll be weekly, pretty much weekly updates on the site, even daily. When I get to the construction zone map, we'll talk about it. But I mean, recently, like for this meeting, there was an advertisement on there as well as just an update on the Curry project, but we'll continue to get more as we pick up here. We'll also be broadcasting a lot of the updates to social media, so through Facebook, Twitter feeds, all that. So hopefully a lot of you guys have already subscribed, but if you haven't, it's pretty easy. You can't really see very well on here, but there's a subscribe button. If you go to carsonproud.com, you hit the subscribe. It's really simple. You just put in your email address, first name, last name, and basically hit submit, and you're signed up to get weekly updates for all the projects that are going on, and this will obviously be the Curry project.
If you subscribed on the last project, you need to resubscribe.
No, you'll still be on there.
And then also with Carson Proud, you can email too, and it gets directly routed, usually probably to me. So comments and stuff, it's another great way to submit comments if you have them during construction. Yes?
not to slow you down, but at the first issuances of the social media applications originally for the Main Street process, it was a lot of, this is gonna happen this week. And it basically was saying, stay away from this area because this is gonna happen. So obviously nobody here wants people to be staying away at any time. So the more we can tell people, please come down and visit, there will be this, we realize it's gonna be a challenge, but we want you to come down. So the more positiveness that we can put with anybody who signs up for that, that'll be extremely helpful
absolutely.
from the get-go, right from the get-go.
Yeah, that's a good point, and we will phrase stuff.
In the cone zone, you know what I mean, is that gonna
Go down.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. So yeah, the cone zone construction map is what we call. So if you go on the Carson Proud website, you can click on this link and the map of construction comes up. This is just like the base layer to show the construction zones. But as we start, there'll be updates, showing road closures, and this will happen on a day-to-day basis. So they'll have road closures, detour information, parking information, where spots are being taken up and where some alternatives for parking is, business access. So not just obviously for the businesses to plan around, but also the people visiting can go here and figure out how they can get around downtown in the construction area. So this is will be a good resource during construction. And we'll be doing, I think, weekly videos as well, or bi-weekly videos, where we'll give updates on road closures, and we'll be coordinating with Q&D on that as well to get information out. And then this is the contacts, and I guess, Steve, this isn't your super duper secret construction hotline here, because this will go on the Carson. This will go on the Carson
Got
Proud
a
website.
secret probation.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just the animal house? Oh, yeah, you're a millennial.
I'm not, I saw it.
So this number will be the official construction hotline. It'll probably ring on multiple people's phones, including myself, probably John Platt, who's out in the field. Probably a lot of you are familiar with him. He'll be out there again. And then, of course, this is my direct line here. You can call me on that or email me on that as well. So again, we want to be a resource and be available for you guys during construction. So those are going to be the best ways. And then as far as once Q&D's out there, I think they can give at least the businesses their whoever's down, boots on the ground guy out down there, give them the contact information there as well. And that's it. So if you have more questions, and again, we'll be pushing out updates here as
I
we
would
get
just
closer.
like to say that you guys did a fabulous job on Main Street, and thank you. And I can't think of a better team to work together for this project.
It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.